Now, the Namibia Statistic Agency again came under scrutiny over its latest statistics. Now, this time, the Namibian Chamber of Mines has disputed the mining statistics contained in the 2016 preliminary national accounts, saying the figures were a gross misrepresentation of the true contribution of the industry made to the gross domestic product for the period under review. Now, in the studio with me, we're joined by the Statistician General, Alex Chumafeni. Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us this evening. Now, the Chamber of Commerce, or the Chamber, pardon me, of Mines is currently disputing the mining statistics or figures that are contained in the latest statistics. Basically, the main question is how come, especially in view of the information that NSA has, for example, this is where we get our usual statistics from such industries. How come they're saying that it is not the correct statistics? It's not supposed to have gone to the media in that format. What happened?
Yes, you're right, Tashia. And first of all, maybe let me start by saying the NSA was established by the Statistics Act number 9 of 2011 with one of the mandates to produce official statistics.
Yeah.
Now, when we say official statistics, it means it's only us who can produce statistics that is talking to the nation. Now, in this event of the Chamber of Mines, we get our figures from the Ministry of Mines and Energy, and we also survey some of the companies that are involved, specifically now for this one, the mining companies, the B2Golds and so on.
Yeah.
Now, going to the media by saying that we are misrepresenting, that is actually not a good act from the Chamber of Mines, even without talking to us, because we have followed the processes and we have followed the definitions that needs to be used for the calculation of the GDP.
When these figures, just off the cuff, when these figures are actually released eventually by the NSA, has the mines, the Chamber of Mines being contacted, for example, to come and sit at the table, and do they have that that mandate to actually come and agree or disagree or approve or disprove the stats?
Yes, of course they have to. If they want to disapprove, they have to come to see us. But now, after the fact, you can also come and dispute. But in this case, as we are saying, it's a matter of definition that was actually not according. We are not on par. We are following a certain definition.
Which then brings us to the next question. What is the methodology that is used during these calculations? For example, the NSA, what are we using here, Alex? And are these methods in line with international practices?
Yes, they are in line within international practices because we are using the system of national accounts 1993, which is called the SNA 93. Now, with these methodologies, when you calculate the GDP, you look at the value addition. You don't look at the production. Yes, the mining is looking at the total production, but value addition, we are talking about the production, then you need to deduct the intermediary consumption. That is where the difference came in.
That sounds very statistical to me. But now, Alex, can you explain to us, for example, why the mining GDP differ from the rest? And does it really actually differ? Is this argument really very valid from the Chamber of Mines?
Yeah, first of all, the Chamber of Mines, as far as I know, they do not produce a GDP. The only official GDP is produced by the NSA. But the figures that they have published in the daily newspaper, those we don't dispute. Those are production figures. We also use those. But what we are saying, then we deduct the intermediary consumption. Basically, what it is when you produce gold or what have you, you are using inputs like water, electricity, and so on.
Absolutely.
Those we need to deduct. Because if you don't deduct that, you can be a double counting. Because the water and electricity, there's a mining sector that look at that. So that's what we are saying. All we are saying is that to calculate the GDP, we have followed, and we have been doing this for all the years.
Yeah. Now, for example, economists last year accused the NSA of using a wrong deflator, and as a result released inaccurate figures. For example, while at the same time some disputed the unemployment figures, for example, that the agency released last year, and Is this convincing for you that there is quality assurance with our NSA?
Yes, with regard to the deflator, there's no single GDP deflator.
Yeah.
You might look according to the SNA publication. You need to come up with a deflator figure that you are working at. But in order to deflate, and even to then deflating is you are looking at the effect of the prices that you are working into calculating of the GDP. Now, you need to have, for example, when you look at the production of mining and so on, you need to have what they call the PPI, what we call the Producer Price Index, which we do not have yet, but we are underway in constructing that. Now, then we use proxies to deflate.
Yeah.
You use the volume of products that were produced to deflate for the current prices.
Yeah.
And then, but then other deflators that we are using, for example, the hotel and restaurants, there's a subsection on the consumer price index. We use that inflation to deflate for that sector. So those are the different deflators that we are using.
So there won't really be a standard way of measuring in data, for example, for all sectors and industries. It will differ slightly. Okay, one last question. Perhaps if you can also clarify for us, you know, on the poverty figures issue, the explanation of the definition itself, as some people also did not fully agree, for example, on how the NSA classify poverty. Where did the NSA get this information from?
Yeah, before I get to that, maybe just a quick question you ask about the unemployment figures. The unemployment, if you look at the first world countries or the developed countries, they use the strict definition of poverty, which is you are looking for work in the past 4 weeks and you are ready to take up work in the next 2 weeks. Yeah. But what we are using the broad definition. Those are all ILO definitions. Okay. And that broad definition says it doesn't matter whether you have been looking for work in the past weeks, or so, as long as you are unemployed. That's why the figures you might find that will be higher. Okay. Now, talking about the poverty, yes, the definition also is a matter of definition from the World Bank. Yeah. This is actually worked out according to how much you can afford on the basic needs. In terms of also, there's a food poverty that is also based on the certain calories or the nutrition that you are supposed to take in as a human being.
Yeah, but let's sit now for a moment and just look at some of the challenges perhaps that NSA is faced with, especially with regards to when it comes to compiling these statistics.
Yeah, the obvious challenge that could be there is when we don't get fast release of data from the sources, when we are collecting the data. So the challenge with that is that we might get the data late, and then we will be under pressure to do our calculations, or if you don't get it at all, then we need to use estimates and proxies. So, and having said this, I'm also requesting the public institutions and so on, the institutions, to please provide us the data, because this data is very important. It's used for policy formulations and other planning, business plannings and so on. For example, the CPI for inflation calculation is also used for whether it's for salary adjustments and so on.
Thank you so much, Alex, for coming in. It's been a pleasure being in your company here on the news. Well, there you have it. And I was speaking to the Statistician General of Namibia, that is Alex Chimwafeni. He's just here to basically clarify on the disputed mining statistics, especially contained in the 2016 preliminary national accounts.